Throughout history, many kings and queens have been admired for their power and grandeur. However, one little-known fact is that some of them had rather unusual and surprising hygiene habits. Join us as we explore the top 7 royals who almost never bathed, and trust me, the one in the top spot will truly surprise you. Versailles, a palace of mirrors, gold, and perfection. But if you step past the shiny halls, you'd find something far less royal, the overwhelming smell of rot and waste. And at the center of it all, Louis XIV, the Sun King, glowing with power and body odor. Louis XIV hated baths. He only took 2 during his entire reign. Instead, he covered himself in thick perfumes and wore clothes designed to trap the scents, but also the sweat, bacteria, and dead skin. His royal doctors told him that water was dangerous, advising him to avoid it at all costs. 7 when his skin started to break open with sores. His stench was legendary. Servants fainted. Foreign guests gagged. His body was described as overpowering, with a constant smell of rotting wounds and sour perfume. Versailles itself was no better. There were no proper toilets, so people relieved themselves behind curtains and under staircases. The palace looked like heaven but smelled like a public sewer in hell. Peter the Great changed Russia forever. He built cities, ships, and brought modern ideas from the West. But while he transformed his nation, he forgot to clean himself. Peter the Great was known to wear the same dirty clothes for days, or even weeks. He'd sweat through bloody battles, drunken parties, and even performed surgeries himself, all while wearing the same filthy outfit. His beard went unwashed, and his hair tangled into greasy clumps. He smelled like a mix of vodka, gunpowder, and grave dirt. Foreign diplomats wrote back to Europe in horror. One even fainted during a meeting, not from fear, but from the sheer power of the Tsar's smell. Even worse, his followers copied him. If Peter the Great didn't wash, then no one else did either. His entire court became a festering pit of filth. Peter the Great dragged Russia into the future, but his hygiene stayed stuck in the Stone Age. The legendary Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, presided over England's dazzling golden age. She shattered the Spanish Armada, inspired the genius of Shakespeare, and wielded power with unmatched intellect and charisma. Her image was everything: the iconic alabaster complexion, the fiery wigs, and the impossibly elaborate gowns. But this meticulously crafted facade concealed a horrifying, toxic reality. Elizabeth bathed only once a month, and even then, reportedly only when she needed to. Her obsession with appearance manifested not in cleanliness, but in dangerous camouflage. Her famed, flawless complexiona lethal illusion was achieved through layers of thick, chalky white lead makeup, a known poison. Each application sealed in the grime and sweat of the previous days, creating a brittle, cracking mask that slowly killed the skin beneath. Her magnificent hairpieces wigs weren't cleaned. They were merely dusted with powder and drenched in perfume, trapping old oils and scalp secretions. Her iconic gowns were rarely washed. Instead, she relied on a vast rotating wardrobe, a strategy of olfactory deception, hoping the sheer volume of garments would diffuse the smell. But beneath the toxic paint and perfumed veils, Elizabeth's body was in revolt. The lead ravaged her skin, causing agonizing blisters, lesions, and suppurating sores. It likely contributed to her losing her teeth, suffering debilitating migraines, and enduring chronic pain. Visitors often noted the Queen's imposing, almost untouchable distance. While power demanded formality, the truth was far more primal. Proximity to Gloriana was a hazard. The closer one got to the dazzling Virgin Queen, the more overwhelming the stench of decay beneath the powder and perfume became. Her distance wasn't just regal, it was a necessary barrier against the physical reality of her unwashed, poisoned existence. To stand near Elizabeth was to breathe in the dark cost of her radiant, rotten glory. She unified Spain, launched Columbus across the Atlantic, and crushed entire cultures beneath her crusading boots. But Queen Isabella of Castile also did something even more shocking. She only bathed twice in her entire life, once when she was born, and once on her wedding day. That's it. Why? Isabella believed that water didn't purify the body, it corrupted the soul. She thought cleanliness was sinful, even dangerous. At the time, doctors warned people that bathing opened the pores and invited disease, demons, and death to creep in. So, Isabella declared war on water and hid behind thick layers of heavy clothing. These weren't just dresses, they were walls of fabric meant to trap heat, hide temptation, and unfortunately, trap everything else too. Her clothes often stayed on for weeks or even months, only removed when they literally fell apart. Inside those rotting layers, her skin became home to colonies of lice, armies of fleas, and rashes that spread like wildfire. The air around her reeked so badly that servants had to burn incense just to breathe. Picture this: a queen giving royal orders while surrounded by clouds of perfume and smoke, trying to mask a stench strong enough to make your eyes water. Her holiness didn't shine. It stank. King James V of Scotland, who ascended to become James I of England, bestowed upon the world one of its most enduring literary and spiritual treasures, the majestic King James Bible. Its language shaped faith and culture for centuries, yet the man behind this divine gift was, by all accounts, a walking, talking health crisis. James harbored a pathological terror of bathing. He viewed water not as cleansing, but as a treacherous enema liquid assassin that sapped vital strength and invited disease. His solution was a multi-layered assault on the senses. Mountains of unwashed clothing, rivers of cheap cologne, often merely masking, not removing, and oceans of his own accumulated sweat. He rarely shed his elaborate, heavy court attire. He famously slept, fully clothed, often still encased in stiff velvet and even his mud-caked boots. Physicians attending him left horrified notes. His hands were perpetually ingrained with dirt, his fingernails packed with black grime, and his breathlets just say it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken sins far from heavenly. Adding another layer to the horror, James possessed an intense, almost paralyzing phobia of being touched. Many historians whisper that this wasn't mere paranoia. It was grim self-awareness. He knew couriers didn't maintain a respectful distance solely due to protocol. They did it for survival. Approaching the king required not just deference, but genuine courage. The courage to endure a stench frequently described as akin to moldy cheese tightly swaddled in damp, rancid wool. Imagine the reverence demanded while bowing low before a monarch whose very presence was a physical assault. Henry VIII of England, the larger-than-life tyrant, the 6 times married monarch, the breaker of churches and maker of laws. His appetites were gargantuan for food, wine, women, power, and spectacle. Yet, for a king whose very being seemed defined by excess, one earthly pleasure was conspicuously, disgustingly absent: the bath. Henry embodied the Tudor paradox, surrounded by unparalleled luxury, draped in cloth of gold and jewels, presiding over feasts of staggering extravagance, yet stewing in his own accumulating filth. Like his contemporaries, he held a deep-seated belief that frequent bathing opened the body to dangerous miasmas and illness, weakening the robust constitution he prized. Especially in his younger, more athletic years, water was suspect. The true weapons against odor were perfume, pomander balls tightly clutched to the nose, and layers upon layers of rich fabrics. Ointments were slathered on not to cleanse, but to mask. As his body ballooned with gluttony and his health catastrophically declined, infamous suppurating leg ulcers, bouts of fever, and probable type 2 diabetes, the situation became dire. Imagine the sheer volume of the king, a mountain of flesh, perpetually sweating, his ulcerated leg weeping pus and blood into bandages that were likely changed infrequently. The stench of necrosis mingled with the cloying sweetness of rose or ambergris perfume, the stale reek of old wine, and rich decaying food particles caught in his beard, which he reportedly wiped but rarely washed properly. Add to that the pervasive odor of unwashed skin and soiled undergarments trapped beneath his vast jeweled costumes. His palaces, though grand, lacked effective sanitation. Rushes on the floor, meant for freshness, became rancid sponges soaked in spilled ale, food scraps, and worse. Courtiers attending him, seeking favor or delivering news, had to endure this overwhelming olfactory assault, a thick miasma of decay, barely held at bay by clouds of incense and perfume. Henry's very presence became a physical manifestation of unchecked power and unchecked decay. Empress Elizabeth Sisi of Austria was an icon of 19th-century beauty. Her legend was built on waist-cinching corsets and hours of meticulous hair care. Her ankle-length tresses demanded daily 3-hour brushing sessions and an almost pathological obsession with preserving her youthful image. She rode, fenced, dieted fanatically, and embodied an ethereal, almost fairy tale-like elegance. Yet beneath this carefully constructed facade of health and perfection lay a shocking secret. Sisi viewed bathing as a perilous assault on her fragile constitution. Convinced that immersion in water dangerously sapped her vital forces and invited illness, she reportedly submitted to a full bath only once every few months. Imagine the dissonance. Hours spent grooming her legendary hair to immaculate, perfumed perfection, while the body beneath remained largely untouched by cleansing waters. Her beauty routines were a fortress wall against aging and scrutiny, yet the foundation, her own skin, was neglected, based on a terror of water's imagined weakening properties. While she anointed herself with costly lotions and cologne, and likely employed sponge baths for minimal surface cleaning, the deep grime accumulated. Her beauty was legendary, but it was a beauty built in part on a foundation of deliberate, fearful filth.